Once upon a time in Alphabet Land, there lived a happy letter named A. A was the first letter of the alphabet and loved its special place. A was a cheerful letter with two long legs and a little bridge connecting them in the middle. A's favorite color was bright red, and it wore a shiny red hat on top of its head. A had many friends in Alphabet Land, but its best friends were B, C, and D. They would always play together and have fun. One sunny day, they decided to have a picnic in the beautiful letter park. A was excited and said, "I'll bring apples for everyone. They're my favorite fruit because they also start with the letter A." B, C, and D agreed and said they would bring their favorite foods too. So, they all prepared their picnic baskets and met up at the park. At the park, A proudly placed the apples on the picnic blanket. B brought bananas, C brought cookies, and D brought delicious donuts. The friends had a great time eating, laughing, and playing games together. After their meal, A suggested a game. "Let's play the animal alphabet game." A said, "We'll take turns naming an animal that starts with the first letter of our names." A went first and said, "Ant." A loved the tiny, hard-working insects that shared its letter. B named a bear, C named a cat, and D named a dog. They went around in a circle, taking turns to name different animals starting with their respective letters. As they played, the other letters in Alphabet Land heard their laughter and came to join in on the fun. Soon, the entire alphabet was playing the animal alphabet game together. E named an elephant, F named a fox, and G named a giraffe. The game continued, and the letters grew happier and closer as friends. As the sun began to set, A decided it was time to head home. The friends all agreed and started packing up their picnic. Before leaving, A gathered everyone together and said, "Today was such a wonderful day. I am so grateful to have you all as my friends in Alphabet Land. Let's promise to have more fun days like this together." All the letters cheered and agreed, making a special promise to meet up and play more games in Letter Park. Do you know Mother Nature? She is responsible for the care of the earth and everything that grows on it or in it. You might think that Mother Nature, like the famous old woman who lived in a shoe, has so many children that she doesn't know what to do. But you will know better when you get to know her and learn how strong and active she really is. She can be in 50 places at once, caring for a sick tree or a newly born baby flower, while at the same time building underground palaces, guiding the footsteps of little travelers on long journeys, and tending to her great house, the earth. And all the while, amidst her patient and never-ending work, she will tell us the most charming and wondrous stories of centuries ago, when she was young, or of the treasures hidden in the most remote and secret closets of her palace. Such stories you will all enjoy hearing your mother tell you as you sit around her in the twilight. I will now tell you a few of these stories that she has told me, starting with this one that I know, a Scottish girl who lives in the Highlands. Her house is barely more than a hut. Her father tends sheep on the slopes, and instead of wearing a coat, he wraps himself in a warm cloak to protect himself from the cold wind that drives great clouds of mist and snow between the mountains in front of them. As for Jeannie herself, her face has been browned by the sun and her hands hardened by work, for she helps her mother with cooking and sewing, spinning and weaving. And Jeannie has a beautiful treasure in her possession. It is a necklace of amber beads. You may have seen amber before and know its rich, sunny color and the scent of it when you rub it, and do you also know that rubbing it attracts things to it like a magnet? Jeannie's beads had all these properties, but some other ones as well, miraculous and lovely, and it is of these in particular that I want to tell you. Each bead has a small object inside as if it has grown inside the stone, and Jeannie never tires of looking at them and thinking about them. She has a bead with moss inside it and one with a fly, its little wings spread and lifted to fly. And in another bead is a beecot and a small beetle in another. She also has a bead with 2 pine needles inside it. I wish you could see the beads, for they are beautiful. But where did these beads come from and why does Jeannie have them? The only thing she knows is that her grandfather, years ago when he was a boy, went to the beach after a big storm and found a bright, shiny lump of amber among the slippery seaweed in which all these little creatures were stuck. Her grandfather was in love with a beautiful girl and gave her the necklace when they got married. He had carved the beads out of the lump of amber himself, carefully working to save the most beautiful insect or moss in each bead. And when her grandmother passed away, Jeannie was allowed to have the necklace. But what Jeannie didn't understand is how the amber came to the coast, and especially how the bees and mosses got inside it. And Mother Nature told her, long ago, before there were people on Earth, the Scottish Highlands were covered in forests. There were oaks, poplars, beeches, and pines, and among them a kind of pine, tall and stately, from which a shiny yellow gum flowed. This beautiful yellow gum was fragrant, and as the thousands of small insects fluttered around it in the warm sunshine, they were attracted by the delicious scent and perhaps also by the taste, and when they settled on it, they became stuck and could not escape, while the large yellow droplets that oozed out surrounded and eventually completely covered them. And this is amber. That's a beautiful story, Mother Nature, but how did the lump of amber end up on the coast, belonging to Jeannie's grandpa? This is the second part of the story. Have you ever heard that very long ago, the land sometimes sank into the sea, even so deep that the water covered the mountaintops? You can hardly believe it, yet I was there to see it myself. And I remember well when the great forests of northern Scotland, the oaks, poplars, and amber pines, disappeared into the sea. There the gum hardened into stone, and only great storms can move the stone. It was one of those great storms that brought Grandpa's lump of amber to the shore. In the days of chivalry, mail-clad knights, armed with shield and spear, rode through the land to defend the right and to punish the wrong. Whenever they were to meet each other in battle at the great tournaments, a herald was first sent to announce the fight and give fair warning to the opponents, that each might be in all things prepared to meet the other, and defend or attack wisely and upon his guard. So, dear children, you must know that Winter, who is coming clad in his icy armor, with his spear, the keen sleet, sends before him a herald, that we may not be all unprepared for his approach. It is an autumn night when this herald comes. All the warm September noons have slipped away, and the red October sunsets are almost gone. Still, the afternoon light, shining through the 2 maples, casts a crimson and yellow glow on the white wall of my little room, and on the paths is a delicate carpet of spotted leaves over the brown groundwork. It is past midnight when the herald is called, and although his night is so fierce, loud, and blustering, he moves noiselessly forth and carries his warning to all the country round. Through the little birch wood he comes, and whispers a single word to the golden leaves that are hanging so slightly on the slender boughs. One little shiver goes through them, sends them fluttering all to the ground, and the next morning their brown, shriveled edges tell a sad story. Through the birch wood he hurries and on to the bank of the brook that runs through the long valley, for the muskrat, who has his home under the shelving bank, must hear the news and make haste to arrange his hole with winter comforts before the brook is frozen. While he crosses the meadow, the field mouse and the mole hear his warning and lay their heads together to see what is best to be done. Indeed, the mole, who himself can scarcely see at all, is always of opinion that two heads are better than one in such cases. Beyond the brook is Farmer Thompson's field of squashes. "I will not hurt you tonight," says the herald as he creeps among them, "only a little nip here and a bite there, that the farmer may see tomorrow morning that it is time to take you into the barn." The turnips stand only on the other side of the fence and cannot fail to know also that the herald has come. But up in Lucy's flower garden are the heliotropes and fuchsias, tea roses and geraniums, delicate, sensitive things, who cannot bear a cold word. It must have been really quite terrible what he said there, for before sunrise, the beautiful plants hung black and withered, and no care from their mistress, no smiles or kind words, could make them look up again. The ivy had borne it bravely, and only showed on his lower leaves, which lay among the grass, a frosty fringe, where the dew used to hang. My two maples heard the summons and threw off their gay dresses, which withered and faded as they fell in heaps on the sidewalk. The next morning, children going to school scuffed ankle-deep among them and laughed with delight. And the maples bravely answered the herald, "Now let him come, your knight of the north wind and the storm and the sleet. We have dropped the gay leaves which he might have torn from us. Let him come, we have nothing to lose. His snows will only keep our roots the warmer, and his winds cannot blow away the tiny new buds which we cherish, thickly wrapped from the cold, to make new leaves in the spring." And the elm and the linden and horse-chestnut sent also a like brave answer back by the herald. Over the whole village green went the whisperer, leaving behind him a white network upon the grass. And before the sun was up to tangle his beams in its meshes and pull it all to pieces, old Widow Blake has seen it from her cottage window and said to herself, "Well, winter is coming. I must set up some warm socks for the boys today, and begin little Tommy's mittens before the week is out." And Farmer Thompson stands at his great barn door, while yet the eastern sky is red, and tells Jake and Ben that the squashes and pumpkins and turnips must all be housed in cellar and barn before night. For a frost like this is warning enough for any man to begin to prepare for winter. Mr. Winslow, the gardener, is working all day with matting and straw, tying up and packing warmly his tender shrubs and trees, and the climbing rose that is trained against the west end of the piazza must be made safe from the cold winds that will soon be creeping round there. What will your mother do when she sees the white message that the herald has left in his frosty writing all over the lawn? Will she put away the muslin frocks and little pink or blue calicoes and ginghams, the straw hats, and Frank's white trousers and summer jackets, just as the trees threw aside their summer leaves? Not quite like the trees, for your clothes can't be made new every spring out of little brown buds but must be put away in the great drawers and trunks of the clothes press to wait for you through the winter. And see how your mother will bring out the woolen stockings, warm hoods and caps, mittens, cloaks, and plaid dresses, and try on and make over, that all things may be ready. For it is with such things as these that she arms her little boys and girls to meet the night who is coming with the north wind and storm. Old Margaret, who lives in the little brown house down at the corner, although she cannot read a word from a book, reads the herald's message as well as your mother can. But here are her 5 boys, barefooted and ragged, ever in summer clothes, and her husband lies back with a fever. She can't send back so brave an answer as your mother does. But your mother and Cousin George's mother and Uncle James can help her to make a good, brave answer. For here is Frank's last winter's jacket, quite too small for him, just right for little Jim, and Father's old overcoat will make warm little ones for 2 of the other boys. And here are stout new shoes and woolen socks, and comfortable bedclothes for the sick man. Margaret sends a brave answer now, although this morning she was half ready to cry when she saw the message that Winter had sent. Look about you, children, when the herald comes, and see what answers the people are giving him. I have told you a few. You can tell me many, if you will, before another year goes by. Once upon a time there was a husband and wife who had a lovely daughter. Her name was Natasha. Not long after Natasha's mother passed away, her father remarried. Her new stepmother already had 2 daughters. Natasha was delighted to not only get a new mother, but also 2 sisters. Unfortunately, Natasha soon discovered that her stepmother and her daughters were not nice at all. They let her do all the hard work and didn't do anything themselves. Natasha's father of course noticed this, but he could not go against the wishes of his new wife. Natasha was miserable, but she didn't let it show. She always tried to make everyone happy. On an icy, cold day, with meters of snow outside and icicles hanging from the roof, the stepmother told her husband, "It is time to find a husband for Natasha. Tomorrow you will go out with the sled and take her with you." These words made Natasha very happy, for she wasn't happy at home and would love to marry a kind man. The next morning Natasha put on her most beautiful clothes and went down. She took with her a little purse with her most precious belongings. She looked so beautiful and sweet. The stepmother and sisters were jealous of her, even though they had better clothes and jewelry. Then the stepmother told her husband, "Listen carefully. You must bring Natasha to the big hill in the forest. There you must leave her next to the big pine tree. Her groom will fetch her there. I want her to marry Father Frost." Oh, this evil plan frightened her husband and Natasha so. But they set off, and after a while they arrived at the big pine tree. It started snowing harder and harder while Natasha sat down beneath the tree. Her father said his goodbyes crying and went home. Natasha was getting colder and colder while she sat in the outstretched winter forest by herself. Suddenly she heard a noise. It was getting closer and closer. It seemed someone was jumping from tree to tree. It was the frost that was coming closer. Quickly Natasha heard the same sound now right above her from the top of the pine tree. Instantly it got even colder. Then a voice spoke, "Sweet girl, are you warm enough?" Natasha could hardly speak because she was so cold, but whispered, "Yes, Father Frost." The frost moved down the tree and asked the girl the question again. And again the girl kindly replied. Then the frost jumped out of the tree and landed on the ground in front of Natasha. He was gorgeous to look at. He had a beautiful cloak full of snowflakes and a scepter made of ice. He looked at the almost frozen girl and gently touched her with his scepter. Immediately Natasha warmed up. Her clothes changed into the most beautiful clothes she had ever seen. And her little purse with her belongings changed into the most brilliant gems. The frost looked at Natasha with content and then disappeared. Natasha's father couldn't believe his eyes. When he saw his daughter sitting safe and sound beneath the pine tree the next morning, the brilliant gems and the beautiful clothing was a nice surprise too. He took his daughter home and thought his wife would regret her decision. But instead, you got even more jealous. She decided to send her daughters to the pine tree too. But her daughters weren't so sweet and nice as Natasha. When Father Frost came to check on them, they were nasty and mean. So he didn't reward them with gems and clothes, but left them there to freeze. When their mother discovered this the next day, she was overcome with grief, but after some time passed she realized this was her lesson for being cruel and greedy. After that, Natasha's life became much better. She met a nice man whom she was to marry, and they lived happily ever after.